the backlog of cases in the lower courts. We have the Committee on Computerization undertaking the study as to whether we can computerize all courts, including the first-level courts. And I do not know if you read the speech of our Senior Justice Carpio, that computerization has been effective in the Court of Appeals, and we want to introduce the system in other courts. And then we have also the PMO, which is the Program Management Office that undertakes the management programs of the court, headed by Justice De Castro. And then we have also the Mother Rule Committee, what we call the committee that undertakes the revision of the rules of court, which we call the Bible of all courts. And we have several committees to undertake and to answer the concerns of like you. And we discuss them on a regular manner. What happened to the meetings conducted by the committees. And in fact, we invite members of the IBP to join us in the committees. We invite NGOs to join the committees. We invite our developmental partners. No, I think Attorney Masguera is here. He was one of the, I think he's in the audience. He used to be part of the ABA, I think. Yeah, that also helped the Supreme Court in this program. And I just want to tell you this, that this is what we are doing, you know, to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the Supreme Court. Now,
lastly, Mr. Justice, if I can just say again, I am fully aware of these programs. I think these programs should be encouraged. Siguro ang dapat lang talaga, the court should communicate these matters more to the public.
Ang problema namin hindi kami kasi politician, with due respect to Congressman Tupas, hindi kami pwedeng magpa-interview sa TV regardless of your physical appearance. Hindi po kami pwede.
Pero hindi naman po kailangan magpa-interview. Alam niyo, yung sa website, you know, there are so many social media now that are available. Meron naman po tayong press spokesman. You know, just update regularly the public on what the court is doing to try and fix the problems.
We have actually the PIO, but with limited resources. No, you can just imagine inside the court here, in the session room, we have to borrow the television equipment of Channel 4, so that you can be seen before the eyes of the public. And therefore, that is my last question, my last comment, dear Dean Andy. I think we are through so far as you are concerned.
Ay, maraming salamat po sa mga miyembro ng ating council. If I may just circle back to what I first said, no, that as far as I'm concerned, really, while choosing the next Chief Justice is very important, we should not lose sight of the larger objective, which is to overhaul our justice system. And also, one person cannot do the job. It is a complex problem. I wish that the court, the JBC, the key to me is forming a justice league or a group of legal avengers that can really go through and really slay this problem that are facing our judicial system. Maraming salamat po at magandang umaga.
Maraming salamat din.
Your Honors, the next candidate to be interviewed is Attorney Soledad Cagampang De Castro, Consultant of Counsel of De Castro, Cagampang De Castro Law Office.
You may take your seat now, ma'am. Are you ready now, ma'am?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, Attorney Cayusa will first ask the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Attorney De Castro, the records will show that you were nominated by, among others, your own son.
Yes.
And with some other individuals.
Yes.
And in the light of the recent impeachment experience, why did you decide to accept your nomination to the Supreme Court?
I thought the JBC should have some alternatives rather than just be limited to people who are already known, publicly known because they're already public officers. I thought the JBC should be able to look beyond who are already in office. Maybe the private sector may have an alternative also.
Ma'am, may I just know if your husband is supporting you on this endeavor?
You know, there are many lawyers in the family. I grew up with a family of lawyers, so I'm used to as many opinions as many lawyers around.
Because what makes your circumstance rather distinct is that your husband has also nominated others to the position and in fact has invoked the equity of the next in rank.
Yes, I know. And I respect his opinion.
What to you is the experience that you have as a private practitioner, which would give you a distinct advantage to the nomination?
I think as a practicing attorney for so many years, we have borne, among others, we have borne the brunt of the difficulties confronted by private practitioners because of how the judiciary operates. So while we are not within the organization, we are the quote-unquote victims of whatever anomalies or inefficiencies in the system. And I think an outsider looking in can have a contribution to have a more efficient judiciary.
What have you accomplished in the past that would convince us that you have the qualities needed in order to bring about an improvement in the administration of justice?
Well, I have been in management, although it is in a private enterprise. I was the head of an executive vice president for legal and audit in what used to be the biggest mining company in the Philippines for 16 years. And then I was able to put up a newly created office in the office of the president and made it operational in 1 year from scratch. And so I have an idea of how a government office should work or ought to work, and how in private enterprise, I think the principles of management would be more or less the same as in public offices also. And maybe I could contribute a little bit of that experience.
But you admit that the question of the administration of justice is more than just a business enterprise. It's more complex.
Of course.
And do you think that you have the capabilities to address all the concern, given that you have never had any experience in the judiciary?
In terms of management and administration, I think my experience in management could help me out in that. If as from my information, there are about 22,000 employees in the judiciary from top to bottom, and 2,000 of which 2,000 are judges or actually doing the work of judges. It's really not that much.
Thank you, Attorney De Castro. Now moving on. You mentioned that you have been working with the mining sector. Do you believe that the court has overstretched its mandate when it implemented rules that pertain to particularly the writ of kalikasan? What are your views on this?
The writ of kalikasan is also an implementation of a constitutional policy to protect the environment for future generations. as laid down in the principle of its decision in the Oposa case. And I think the role of the Supreme Court in terms of protecting the environment should be retained and actively pursued.
Thank you, ma'am. My final question. What is your judicial philosophy on gender equality and gender discrimination? And do you think that our courts have been able to achieve gender equality now?
I think still trying. But you know, I grew up in an environment where there was no gender equality. My mother was not allowed to go to college because my grandfather believed that only guys or his boys could go to college. So I grew up in an environment where my mother insisted that her daughter should have equal rights as her sons. So that's how I came to be what I am now. So I am for gender equality, but in my experience, there's always a glass ceiling for women. Whether you like it or not, it appears invisible until you're on that particular level when you have to go to the top. And I think this is also one of my objectives, to find out whether in the judiciary there is also that glass ceiling that is invisible.
Could you be more specific as how you could promote, how you expect to promote gender equality in the event that you become Chief Justice?
All applicants for the judiciary should be equally evaluated. They should undergo the same rigors of application, interviews, and credit and background checking, all the same. No discrimination whatsoever. Because the way, from my personal experience, I made it a point that nobody should carry my bag just because I'm a woman. I should walk like the other men when they go to work. No special treatment, because that is the cost of equality.
And I'm sure you look forward to the day that we would have a lady Chief Justice. With that, ma'am, I end my questions. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Attorney Mejia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Attorney Cagampang De Castro.
Good morning.
Mayroon po tayong note dito na may mga humihiling na itanong yung ibang katanungan sa Tagalog para maintindihan daw ng ordinaryong mamamayan. Pipilitin po namin.
May note lang ako ay Bisaya, ha?
Pwede rin po siguro sa Bisaya.
Sige, sige.
Okay.
Halo-halo.
Ugnay po, no? Or I would like to take off from where Attorney Cayosa left off. Gusto ko rin pong itanong, pinag-uusapan po kanina yung gender sensitivity. Kailangan po ba magkaroon talaga ng gender perspective o pananaw sa kasarian o may kaugnayan sa kasarian, gender perspective in deciding cases? Should there really be a gender perspective in deciding cases, to your mind po?
Ang ibig sabihin, kesyo ang litigant ay babae, iiba ang view mo. Siguro, in a sense, when it involves sex crimes maybe, or violence against women. Pero in other aspects, dapat pareho lang. Kesyo babae kay pareho mang emotions yan eh. Pareho namang problema niyan eh. Parehong nagagalit, parehong umiiyak. Pero kung crimes against women, siyempre iba yun.
Thank you po. Attorney Cagampang De Castro, should you be appointed as Chief Justice? No? Kung kayo po ay mahihirang bilang punong mahistrado, mayroon na lamang pong malalabing 3 taon upang kayo ay magsilbi bilang Chief Justice. No? There will only be 3 years for you to serve as Chief Justice. How do you intend to make an impact within those 3 years that will be left for you to serve po?
It means I will just work double time, meaning instead of reviewing the entire organization for maybe a year, I'll do it in 3 to 6 months by inviting expert consultants. I will abbreviate the processes, the preparatory processes, so that that if there's any change or reform that is needed or improvement that is needed, it could be implemented as soon as possible.
How will you characterize the level of corruption po, or the perceived corruption in the judiciary, and what will you do to address it?
Of course, I am an outsider, and as you said, these are only perceptions because it's very difficult to establish. But we just hear it from complaints of clients or from party litigants, not your clients, and even fellow lawyers. They complain about this or that. And I think the problem of corruption has been there with us for ages. And we need a long-term solution to that. And I think I could start now. I have been an educator for, at least in law school, for 11 years. And after that stint in UP for 11 years, I've been teaching in almost all the other downtown law schools. Out of curiosity, really, because I wanted to know what quality of education, legal education, is there outside of the more famous schools. And I thought that there is a need to go back to the teaching or imbibing of values, especially for lawyers. Now, the problem with many lawyers that are not full-time students or who were not full-time students, that they come from work, they go to their classes unprepared, and they don't have the preparedness for law school. Because every time I ask a question, it's very difficult for them to comprehend. Either they lack the proficiency in English, they don't understand, or they're simply unprepared, or their pre-law preparation has been quite inadequate. I was so surprised because I was brought up in the humanities. I had an AB with all the humanities. So we had ethics, we had logic, and then we had philosophy. But many of these law students now, especially the working ones, they have already their own careers. And you find out that they are professionals in their own right, but they did never have logic or ethics in philosophy. So these are the basic values, the subjects that imbibe, that teach you the values to be good lawyers. So maybe if from the outset we prescribe, the Supreme Court to prescribe that to be able to qualify for law school, you should have taken all the subjects, some humanities subjects, then that's already a step forward to improving our law students and eventually lawyers. This is the value system. And then we should have continuing training in law school in ethics. Just don't relegate ethics into the background. One unit on the last semester of law school, as if it is really nothing. And then in the bar subjects, in the bar exam, it's combined with legal forms. I mean, what kind of message do you put on the importance of ethics? Practically nothing. It's with legal forms. And so maybe if you revise a little bit the law curriculum as well as the pre-law admission requirement to law school, wherein you put in the element of the ethical conduct of lawyers to be, or simply human beings, maybe we could improve on the long term, of course. This is a long term, the effect of that is long term. In the same way that corruption has been a long term problem in this country. So maybe we could start with that. That is from the field of education, of course.
Thank you po. That's my final question, and thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you po, Attorney Cagampang De Castro.
Justice Lagman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Attorney De Castro, good morning.
Thank you.
I was reading your personal data sheet, and I noticed that you are 67 years old.
Yes.
Now, I also noticed